Good morning. Um, oh, hi, Mike. Hi. It's nice to see all of you. Welcome. I know some more people are still jumping in, but I thought we would get started. Just tell you a little bit about how we're going to handle this session. I love the chat, and I think we've decided to enable it so that we can all be connected, share comments, say hello. You can all talk to each other. And then we have the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom. And if you post a question in the Q&A, that will be private, but we are lucky to be joined by Julie Parsons this morning, and she'll help us manage the questions. So questions go in the Q&A section. They would be anonymous, and Julie will interrupt me and share them. But the chat, I think, is one of the ways that we are going to stay connected. And before I dive into this presentation, I want to just applaud the Opticians Association of America for staying committed to doing this leadership conference. It is so critically important, and we'll take it any way we can get it. Digitally this year is fantastic. There are ways to connect. Definitely, it's nice to see all of you in the chat. Keep chatting. But let's do this. Let's take this opportunity to talk about leadership and challenging times and all of the reasons we have to be reaching higher. I think I'm so inspired by the theme of this conference, quite frankly, because we've all been through it, right, for like a year now, but that doesn't change the fact that there's so much more for all of us and for our professions and our industry and for vision on the other side of this. And so I think the true investment that you've made in participating today is to stay focused on what matters. And leadership matters, and your states are going to need your leadership to pull out of this. And your profession needs your leadership, and your families and your friends and everyone you work with and deal with and lead. They're going to need somebody to look to who is going to take advantage and hit the ground running when all of this is behind us, which hopefully will be very soon. But we've already been through so much of it. I feel like we've already come so far. So I'm going to try to share my screen and walk through this presentation. So let's see. I should be better at this by now, don't you think? Okay. So as I said, I love Reach for the Stars. I had to put on here that I am a complete and utter space nerd. So anything space themed, especially after the week we had with the Mars Perseverance rover, we should all be so inspired at this point that there is so much more out there, such bigger things, and we will pull through crisis of any kind and always have something beyond us that's bigger and better to reach for. So I chose this quote. The OAA asked that you include a leadership quote in your presentation. And this is one of my favorites for a lot of reasons, because I certainly feel like I'm always trying, always learning. And I think for better or for worse, working through a crisis situation is one of the ways you learn the absolute most. But I hope that you all can relate to this. No one knows all of the answers. That's why it's a crisis. And so you learn as you go, and it makes you better and stronger as you move through. I think I covered this, but so the chat's enabled. We love to see anything, comments, hellos, sarcasm. And then the questions are moderated in private. If you have one, Julie will interrupt me, but then we also have time at the end of the session for more of a discussion, and I have some questions for all of you as well. So I thought we would start with this photo, which I took last year in Destin at the OAA Leadership Conference. Incidentally, that was my last business trip of 2020. And so if we can see the chat, I would like to do a caption this photo contest before we jump into the COVID crisis and how we managed it at the Vision Council. Let me see if anyone wants to caption. Here's my chat. If anyone has any sarcastic comments. I was thinking the calm before the storm, maybe even happy anniversary to all of you because this was a year ago. But feel free to put anything in there. So there it was. That was the last time we were all together. And right before things got really crazy. And it looks like we'll be back in Florida next year, which is really exciting. So I appreciate my friend Dippy Bartlett naming this for me, Houston, we have a problem, again, because I do love space, but also it really sets up the feelings that we were all having a year ago. And so this is what we're going to cover. We'll start talking about when the worst happens, how you assess the situation. And that's a very dynamic and fluid thing because sometimes it takes months to assess what's really going on. I think there's a lot of emphasis placed on decision-making and making tough decisions. And that's, of course, an enormous piece of leading through crisis. But there's a whole other side after you make the decision on how you handle your go forward. And that's where the importance of strategy comes in. And we'll talk about, I think, some of the things that helped the Vision Council over the last year. And those really come down to how we really focused on clarity and what was within our power to control. And then we will have questions at the end. So I'll start by wishing you all a happy anniversary because it was exactly 1 year ago today that I got a call at 6 o'clock in the morning saying that the Mito, the show in Italy, the Mito show had just canceled because of coronavirus. And keeping in mind that Mito was about a month before International Vision Expo in New York, and also that it must have been serious enough that Milan would shut down and cancel Mito during Milan Fashion Week. It had, I mean, instantly all of our alarms were going off that, you know, this is really serious. And COVID was at that time something that we were all watching from afar. And so the early stages of this, so I would also like to underscore the fact that we have now been in crisis for a whole entire year. But assessing the crisis at that time, just to share how little I knew and mindset and what we really knew about the coronavirus, our initial assessment was we have to really proactively communicate that this doesn't impact Vision Expo East. So our original plan was to go into full crisis mode to make sure that everyone knew that Vision Expo was still going to run. And as you can imagine, over the course of about a week, it became very clear that Vision Expo wasn't going to run, and we had to make some serious decisions based on what we knew about COVID, based on what we knew was happening in New York City, watching what was going on in other parts of the world. And so our mindset had to start to shift to what are we working with here, and what are our what are our trigger points here? And safety obviously bubbled to the very, very top, as well as what we owe to our exhibitors, our attendees, and our staff. Our exhibitors were getting ready to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to ship their booths to New York. If we waited too long on a cancellation decision, we would cost them so much just to cancel. So we kind of knew we had to get ahead of it and really take a risk. So when I put external pressure here on the slide and financial hardship, one of the key considerations for the Vision Council in making this decision, and a very difficult discussion we had to have at the board level, was how much this was going to impact the Vision Council financially. So our trade shows are about 3/4 of our revenue. And the thought of losing Vision Expo East or canceling Vision Expo East was almost impossible to consider at the time. But things happened, as you all recall, very quickly. And while our first instinct was, okay, Mito canceled, but Vision Expo is going to run, within about a week, it became very clear that we were going to have to proactively make a call well in advance of knowing if New York was going to stay open or not. And so my first lesson for all of you is to just gather as much information as you can so that you can create a decision tree. Okay, if this happens, what's the implication? What are our options? What's our timing? What are our triggers? And that really helped us at the board level. This was, again, it was all happening in real time. And so we ultimately landed on the fact that, well, sure, we have a huge show that we've been working on for a whole year to completely redesign and relaunch and make amazing. And all of that work is for naught because we're not going to run this thing. So it's really hard to get our head around it. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with a situation such as this, and you're forced to make a really difficult decision, where you have to go is to your mission and your strategy and who you really are as an organization. And at the end of the day, we're a member service organization. We have a responsibility to our members to protect them, to keep them safe, to keep them from wasting money. And so the show part of it, it was heartbreaking, but at the same time, you have to put the membership first in this situation. And so we pulled the board together, we made the decision. We were pressured by New York State at that time and the Javits to not make that decision. And we were also pressured from a lot of different places to not cancel, because we were actually the first. We were the first show to proactively cancel, and the rest followed. But at that time, there was still very much a mindset that you can't let this happen. We need to still have a show. And the reality was that our decision was made: members first, exhibitors first, attendees first, safety first. And so we canceled the show. So there's the decision part, right? So that's hard. Those are bad days. But it's that part after you make the decision. So there are a ton of quotes out there. I say it all the time, but like, hard decisions are much easier to make when you know that they're right. And so we knew we made the right decision, as devastating as it was. Where your strength as a leader comes in is what you do afterwards. So here we are, we have just canceled a show. We are now down millions of dollars in revenue. We have no certainty about what's going to happen for the rest of the year. And so this is like the hard part as a leader. This is where you have to make really difficult decisions and position yourself to now survive the aftermath of the crisis. And so the goal became, how do we continue as a member service organization to lead and serve for our members? And what can we, how do we do this and still not hemorrhage money for the rest of the year? And how do we position ourselves to stay strong financially as an organization so that we can weather this and still be the resource and the advocate that our members need for the vision industry? So the goal was stay in business and serve the members. And that meant to achieve that, we had to make some significant budget and staff cuts early on. And I'll tell you what, in this particular crisis, and I really we were not in this, this was not our problem. Everyone was going through this. And so when you're all in it together and you know your members are cutting staff and salaries, and you know your board, members aren't taking salaries, and you know that many people who are tremendous people are being laid off, it doesn't make it any easier, but this is how serious this is. And so unfortunately, we did have to make some significant cuts, but it helped us get ahead of the financial implications. So while we still lost money, we were still able to pare our organization down to serve like the core of the strategic plan. And so, like I said, we are a member service organization with no show. We were able to put every person in the organization behind how do we generate revenue. And so how do we generate revenue? How do we deliver research? How are we doing member meetings? How are we still supporting members? All of that became everybody's job. And it also, again, it tracked to our plan and our mission. And so I wanted to stop here because this is part of your checklist. You can't be a successful leader in crisis if you don't have a plan. The Vision Council, fortunately, 2 years ago with our board, established a 5-year strategic plan. The plan doesn't change because there's a crisis. The plan doesn't change because of COVID. The plan doesn't change. What you're able to action on the plan, some things had to be put on ice for the year. But the core of the strategic plan and where we want to be at the end of those 5 years, we just took a look at that. We took a look at our mission and we said, what can we do to still fulfill this plan by the end of 2024? This is critical. If there's one thing that you walk away with, it's that I implore you to make sure that you have a solid strategic plan for 1, 3, and 5 years, because without it, you will go so far off track and be in such a reactionary stance that it'll be very difficult to come out on the right path. And I can tell you, because of the strength of the strategic plan and our commitment to mission, even after all of the cuts and even with all of the anxiety about whether or not we were even going to have the September show, and even with all of the challenges that we faced, we still knew exactly what we were supposed to be doing. And so that is the true north. So I would leave you with that as absolute must, is making sure you have a strong strategic plan. Also, an eye on your mission. You cannot lose sight of the mission. And so that between the plan and the mission, it actually provides you great comfort and a great roadmap for exactly where you should be focusing your resources and your energy. And that's where you're leading to. You're not reacting, you're not flailing, you're not chasing any opportunity that doesn't make sense. You stick to plan. And that really is the way you get through. So fortunately, we have a tremendous board of directors and volunteer leadership, and they helped us establish this. And so we knew exactly what we were supposed to be doing. The final piece, and it really goes to the strategic plan, which is where were we going? Where are we supposed to be? And how are we still going to get there? Because like I said, the crisis turned everything upside down, but it doesn't change who we are as an organization, who we want to be, where we're going, and the groundwork that we're supposed to be laying for when we come through this. So the long-term outlook is absolutely critical, especially in this kind of a situation where it is such a significant financial hit. So you already have to know, one, how are we going to survive? But two, how are we going to come out of this? And so with those three things and the importance of strategy, you can survive everything if you have a plan and you stick to the plan and don't let all of the other panic that is going on around you pull you off of that path. So the other thing, this is probably the most important thing that we did and that I learned as a leader during this past year, because let us not forget, it wasn't until July 1st that we knew we weren't going to have the September show. So now we're out both shows. And so we're going to go through a whole year as the Vision Council without our main source of revenue. So clarity and control became, by the time we canceled the September show, which was in July, clarity and control became the mantra around the Vision Council. And the way that you can, I mean, it almost made things so easy, because when you take away the show and you take away a mindset of, well, maybe we'll be able to have one, or well, maybe, or hopefully, and you recognize that you can't deal with maybes and you can't make payroll with hope, and you can't lead a team who has absolutely no idea what's going to happen to themselves or the organization. You have to provide clarity and you have to provide focus. And so what we learned was that take it all, everything that's an uncertain right now, everything that's an X factor, everything that's an unknown is off the table. So let's do what we know. What we know is we need members, we need to serve them, we deliver great research, we need to double down on it. We do a fantastic executive summit. It has an opportunity to generate revenue. And we were able to turn a feeling of complete uncertainty among all of us into something that really, I think, gave all of our team, it gave them some control over their destiny, quite frankly, because we were all, as an organization, focused on what can we do to generate revenue and continue to serve the membership in the best way that we possibly can. So what is within your power is the other way that you lead through the crisis. Is your power is focusing completely on what you can control and managing that. Everything else, you can't work with the uncertainty. You still have to, we still want to have, we wanted things to happen, but we couldn't budget for things to happen. And so we very conservatively planned our organization based on, here's what we know. And like I said, I do think, I feel for every single one of you. This has been such an uncertain year. It's unbelievable what we've all been through. But I truly believe that if you can find that focus and clarity and focus on what you know you can control and work only with certainties and absolutes, you'll be empowered, you will make progress, you will stay on track, and your team will have a sense of empowerment as well. And I mean, really, like, we were all in it together for the organization. And so, I mean, there are a lot of silver linings, I have to say, of COVID, despite how tremendously challenging the last year was. And I think one of the silver linings is that we really focused as one team and one organization, and we were still able to accomplish a lot of really great things on behalf of our members and our industry.
Actually, there was a question that came through.
Okay.
I'm just going to read it. It was from Jerry M. Said a lot of people mixed up mission and core purpose. Here, when you are talking, what is your mission that helped me make the decision, I'm assuming, or the core purpose? So was it the mission or the core purpose that helped make the decisions? What does a small business put that together when you don't have a board?
It's a great question, and it's actually something that we clarified. So 2 years ago when we did this strategic planning exercise, so we had a mission and then all of these strategies listed as part of the mission. And we broke it out, right? So our mission, and this is not verbatim, but our mission is to be the leader for the vision industry and helping our members be successful. We have a vision statement about the power of vision to empower people to live their best lives. That's the vision statement. Our mission, at the end of the day, the mission really gets down to the fact that we're in this for our members. And then we have we have a strategy statement. And so our strategy covers industry forums, research, professional education, consumer awareness, government advocacy. So our mission never changed: members first, and members in support of their success and the growth of the industry. Our strategies, some we just couldn't execute. Some were, like we said, we just didn't have the resources, or they didn't rise to the occasion at the time. But investing in research in the service of the members, continuing to do government relations in the service of our members, producing an executive summit and delivering professional education in the service of our members, all of those things, we didn't abandon the other things. They just had to be put on a back burner. So we were able to focus on how we were going to deliver on our mission. That's what the strategies do. I don't know if that answers the question, but the mission is the why you're in business, why you do what you do. And I think the strategy is how you support the why. Does that help? Okay. Are there any more questions about this? This is like the meat of it before we get into discussion, if there are any other questions. Okay. All right. So there's a happy ending here. So as you all have likely heard, we had to also postpone our Vision Expo East meeting that was supposed to be next month in New York City. So that is now the third time we've had to move a show or cancel a show. However, the first step was to get it out of Q1 because we didn't feel like New York was going to be ready. So we moved it to right before Memorial Day weekend in New York in May. And then about a month ago, it became very clear in conversations with the Javits Center and the state of New York that New York would not be ready for us in the spring. And so we have always planned on having a show in Q2. We know we will be ready. So since New York could not accommodate us, we began looking at other cities who could. And we talked to Orlando, who has been open this whole time and has also executed already 50 successful events at the Orange County Convention Center. So they have a track record of being able to accommodate shows and handle shows. And so we're on. We will be back in June. We are so grateful to be working with Opticon again and the Professional Opticians of Florida. We're going to have a good event. This is a recovery event for sure, but you can see we have better dates that won't compromise the holiday weekend. And now we have a partner at the Orange County Convention Center that knows exactly how to do this correctly. So we are actually announcing tomorrow, and this is just a tiny piece of it, but the decision-making process hasn't changed. The safety of the event is the whole, that is the guiding principle here. And so we will be announcing something called Vision Safe tomorrow, which will be our our protocol, but you can see it's everything that you're all used to and you've been doing for a year. Mandatory face covering, social distancing, we will do temperature screens, we will minimize touch points, and there will be density and occupancy guidelines. I'd also like to add that all of this will be enforced by safety managers on the show floor. That what we've had the benefit of being able to watch other events, and this is a situation where you just simply you just can't get too comfortable. So none of this will be relaxed, and all exhibitors and attendees will have to sign a disclosure before attending the show that says that they will comply with this. We certainly, we just can't let our guard down, and we know that these things work. And so what we're working on right now is a full protocol and how we're going to deliver the event and what you can expect from the aisles and the spacing and the events and even the food and beverage. But I do want to reiterate that we've learned so much over the last year about how this can work. And we feel very proud and confident that this is going to be a good event for all of us. I think this kind of a meeting is critical to keep us connected. You cannot understate the importance of our industry getting together and the optical community doing business and learning and connecting. And so we are very much looking forward to doing that in June with all of you. And there will be so much more information coming out about our safety protocols and what you can expect, as well as how, all the fun parts about Expo too, coming in the coming weeks.
Just a quick question.
I think there's questions. Yeah, let's do it.
In regards to that, Michelle Self said, will we be able to touch the frames?
Yes. You will be able to touch the frames, and then we will also be advising on sanitation protocols for all of the frames. And as you all know, you're all doing this with frames now when you're seeing customers and patients. So we'll be following the guidelines that everyone's used to in terms of sanitation. I think what you can expect are plastic barriers between like the face-to-face contact, but you can definitely touch and feel product. It's very important.
A couple more questions too. I don't know if you want them now or in a little bit.
We can do them now.
Okay. So Jerry M asked, how did you empower the team? What tools were given to them so they did not feel that they were just disposables?
It's a great question. So I don't think anyone felt disposable because we unfortunately had to cut. I hope they didn't feel disposable. But because we had to make staff cuts in April, those that were left, we're part of a really lean team, and everyone was really clear on their role and what they could be doing and should be doing. So I think the empowerment part came from us being really transparent that we did have a plan. I mean, we were really clear with our financials and what we had lost, what we had cut, how we planned to get through the year, what tools we had in our toolkit. So as you know, I think people knew what the plan was, and they were focused on what they could do to generate revenue and serve members. And so that takes a lot of the guesswork about like, oh my gosh, what should I be doing out of it? We really all focused on just the core.
There was one other question here too from Mustafa Asif. I feel like having a Vision Expo in Chicago once a year is a beneficial option for many markets instead of the 2 shows every year. Have one event in a grand level. Of course, this is for future shows. Has this ever been considered?
Is that really Scott Shapiro asking that?
No, it's Mustafa Asif.
Okay.
However it could be.
We consider everything. Chicago's a great city. I think I love it personally. We consider everything. We send out surveys to attendees and exhibitors after every show, and to this day, the majority like the date patterns and they like the locations. We do intend to return to New York next year, but we're also excited to see how people respond to the Florida location as well. But Chicago, everything's in play right now, actually, and I agree with you. I think Chicago's great. We will go where the attendees say they'll go. There another? Wait, I think I can see.
Nope, that was it, and we have 5, 6, 7 minutes left, something like that.
Couple minutes left. So I wanted to ask if anybody, I didn't set up a poll. Now I realize I should have, but is there a way for you all to share if you do have a strategic plan? That could be hard. I can't. Chat. For some reason, I can't see the chat. Oh, there. Okay, I'm in the chat now. Do you have strategic plans? And if not, it's something I would certainly put on the agenda for your next leadership meeting to craft. Yes, Dibby has one. Awesome. Awesome. Like I said, if I didn't have it, very good. Very good. And I know we're talking about COVID, but this goes for any crisis of any caliber, whether it's a PR crisis or a staff crisis, or you're trying to make a decision about growth, or some opportunity comes out of nowhere and it might be interesting, but if it doesn't fit with the plan, you already know that it would distract you from the plan and the strategy. So the plan is absolutely critical. And then I have another question if you all are willing to share. Oh, good. I'm glad. This is great. You all have, yeah, this is good. You guys have plans. Yep. Yep. Oh, hi, Mike. And then I wanted to ask also if, well, we're going to end on a high note, I promise, but I wanted to ask if anyone wanted to share what the hardest leadership decision they had to make is. There's so many. And I wonder, oh yeah, I'm sorry, Jerry, that's horrible. Well, Debbie, I'm glad you're doing this conference. It's really important. Oh. Wow, good for you.
There are a few more questions, Ashley, if you'd like.
Okay, let's take them.
Left. All right, Deb Kotob asks, what is the anticipated attendance for the June show?
So I don't I don't know. Here's what I can tell you. We had just a little bit over 15,000 people in 2019. I don't expect 15,000 people. However, the space we have will accommodate it with social distancing and timed entry. So we will be able to accommodate a show as large as what we had in 2019. I say I don't anticipate that, but I don't know because we are not opening registration until March 22nd. We think people are making decisions later. We've changed the conference program a little bit, so we need a little bit more time. we'll have a pretty good idea in April. What I can tell you, just because we're monitoring every show that happens in Orlando, as of right now, what has happened, the shows in Orlando in January and the Magic show, so Surf Expo, Magic, some others have happened in Orlando in the last couple of weeks, and they were about 50% the size. So we're thinking 50%, but we're also quite comfortable with our safety protocols and our communications plan and the vaccine rollout. So we think we might do better than that. But at this point, all we can really do is just understand how to make sure that we can deliver the event at capacity safely. So we're preparing for 15,000, but I won't know for a couple more weeks.
Another question here was from Moses Nalo. Hey, Ashley, as announced at last year's leadership, is Gal Gadget still happening?
No. No. So that's a reference to, we had a partnership deal in place with Wonder Woman 84. And that was through the Think About Your Eyes campaign. And we were going to run this entire campaign on being a hero and how vision makes you a hero and your vision makes you, like, gives you superpowers. It couldn't happen because of COVID. We weren't able to secure the funding we needed to run the campaign. That was reason one. And then the other reason was the movie itself just kept getting delayed. So there was nothing we could do to plan around it. And then finally, it would be great if it was this year coming up after we've all been through this, but we really pivoted early in the spring to just try to help practices open. So we moved away from the marketing campaign and really just went to something called Reopen Eye Care, where we were helping practices understand PPE and payroll protection loans and whether or not to take credit or use cash or how to sanitize frames. So we were really in crisis mode all summer. So it was an awesome, it would have been awesome, but COVID ruined it. Everyone.
All right, we have 1 minute left. So I don't know what else you might want to say. There is another question, whether or not Vision Expo West is happening. And then we've got 1 minute and got to do our thing.
Well, as far as I know, yeah, we're absolutely planning on it. We've been seeing some really good signals out of Las Vegas. They're reopening. The casinos are reopening. They're reopening to certain levels of capacity. So I know we're all really excited about Las Vegas, and we'll keep you posted as we know. If they can accommodate us and it's safe to run, we will be there.
Okay. I think that's where we're at time, and I'm going to post the link for getting back to the general session. And
well, I want to thank you all and just congratulate all of you for taking the time to do this. It's so important, and thank you for joining the session. Have an awesome rest of your day, and I cannot wait to see you all. Cannot wait.